Hello again. So, we're talking about emotional self-regulation and emotional hygiene. And that's how I talked about it in the last video. But my guidance, my intuition is saying, you know what, we need to elevate how we're talking about this and what the real objective is for this conversation, which is emotional mastery. It's becoming a master of your emotional experience. And when you become a master of your emotional experience, you become a master of your experience, period. Because again, as I said in the last video, your internal experience is reflected in your outer reality. And so when you can become a master of how you are processing life through your emotional experience, that is really the true definition of personal power. And if you've been following me on social media, because again, in my previous iteration, I really was, focusing on keynote speaking and authenticity, confidence, and purpose. Those were the three building blocks of personal power. But I'm really talking about it in terms of spiritual terms, what personal power is really all about. I used personal power as a frame for my keynote in the corporate spaces, really as a way of sneaking in spiritual principles. And so let's really talk about what personal power is all about. Personal power is when you have control and mastery over your internal experience. It's having control of your energy. What is power? Power is energy. It's energy that you use to do things, to create things, to make things, to impact people, the world. It's energy. That's what emotions are. You probably heard the term emotions are emotions, energy in motion. That's what emotions are. It's energy. And so when you have control and mastery over your emotions, you have control and mastery over your energy, and you have control and mastery over your own power. And as I was talking before, on this continuum, this polarity of emotions, you've got the pain emotions on one side, you've got the peace emotions, peace and joy emotions on the other side. These emotional frequencies are frequencies of energy. And when you are operating in the fear, anger, sadness emotions, those emotions have a certain frequency, and they are very slow, and they're very dense, and they're very incoherent. There's not a lot of flow to them. So guess what? When you're operating in those frequencies of slow, dense, incoherent energy, you don't have as much power. You don't have as much power to do things, to make things, to create things. You're disempowered. But on the other side of the emotional spectrum, joy, peace, contentment, delight, happiness, these emotions are higher, they're faster, so they have more energy to them. They are more harmonious. The wave frequency it's more balanced and harmonious. So you have more power to do things, to make things, to create things. You're more empowered. You have more personal power. So this is another reason why it's really important to talk about emotions, especially in this context of manifestation, which everybody's interested in. Everybody wants the money. Everybody wants the wealth. Everybody wants financial freedom. Everybody wants success. But if you really want those things, then doing this emotional work is so incredibly important because, as I said before, it impacts all of the other areas of your life. It impacts what you're able to do, create, manifest for yourself, right? So emotions are energy, they're energy frequencies, they're energy patterns. It's energy that you are giving off It's energy that you are transmitting to the world. And it's why people can pick up on your vibes, why you can pick up on other people's vibes, because they're transmitting, they're giving off energy, even if they don't know it. Why? Because our thoughts contain emotional energy. Every thought has an emotional signature to it. Our beliefs have emotional signatures to it. The belief that I have to work really hard to make money, that has an emotional signature to it, because our beliefs are both cognitive. There's the cognitive aspect of it. What is the thinking pattern? But there's also an emotional component to it, a physiological component to it. So a belief like, I have to work really hard to make money. I can feel it as I say that. My stomach tightens, my chest tightens. There's an emotion to it of dread, of, just it's not fun. There's an anger to it. I got to work really hard to make my time is not my own. There's a disempowering feeling to that belief, as opposed to money flows to me whenever I need it. I can't even say that without smiling. There's an openness to it. There's an energy, an emotion of joy, of trust, right? So our beliefs have an emotional component, an emotional frequency, an emotional signature to them. And we're walking belief systems. And we don't even know what our beliefs are most of the time. All of this stuff is in our subconscious. But because they are in our energy field, our beliefs are and our values are a part of our energy field, and beliefs have an emotional component. All of those beliefs that we have, whether we're conscious of them or not, they are being transmitted to the world. And so that's what is meant by, you attract what you are. If you want to manifest something, you have to change your emotional energy to match the thing that you want. Well, that's why. It's because, that's one of the reasons why. It's because your belief system, what's in your subconscious or your unconscious mind, all of that has an emotional signature to it. So the more that you can get in touch with what is in my subconscious. For me, the last 20 years have really been a process of making the unconscious conscious, shining a light on that deep, murky underbelly of our psyche. I'm just getting an image of all the bottom feeders and the creepy crawlies and all of that, like the Loch Ness Monster. It's like all that stuff, right? When they talk about shadow work, it's the stuff that's in the dark. Bringing all of that to the conscious awareness so that it can be processed, understood, and released and transmuted, transformed into something higher. So that for me has been the benefit of doing emotional processing as well, is making my unconscious conscious. What is under there? What do I believe? Why do I believe it? You know what? I think I'm going to choose a new belief that is more in alignment with who I am, who I want to be, what I want, I want my reality to be. And it's a process of shifting those beliefs, shifting those values, shifting those thoughts, all of which have emotional energy to them. And that is also how you begin to move yourself from this lower end of the continuum, the pain, emotions, fear, anger, sadness, many of which are represented by beliefs that you have, right? And our beliefs come from our past and our childhood, where our brains are developing and we don't have a larger context for why things are happening. But depending on where we are in our brain development, we start interpreting the world in certain ways. And it's those interpretations, it's the stories that we tell ourselves about what's happening that become the foundation for our belief systems. And they have emotional energy, whether you are aware of it or not. So transforming that stuff. This is what's meant, you've probably heard the stories of the alchemists who were trying to turn lead into gold. And, there's this tendency to like hear these stories about, oh my God, these people were so stupid. Like they were trying to turn lead into gold, right? But that's actually an occult way of talking about the process of spiritual transformation. The lead is all of that stuff I was talking about. It's the pain emotions. It's the painful experiences. It's the unconscious processes that are going on, the unconscious patterns. It's the ancestral trauma. It's the past life stuff that we bring in. It's the karma we create in our own life, like it's all of that stuff that, like I said before in my previous video, if you haven't seen it, go back. But most of our experiences, are on that pain end of the continuum. That's the lead. That's the lead. That if we choose to be the spiritual alchemist, we can work with, tinker with, start to transmute and transform into higher spiritual energy, higher spiritual emotions that we then get to benefit from because we get to sit in them every day, right? And that's how we really start to open ourselves up to not only ourselves, a deeper knowing of who we really are as spiritual beings, but we then also start to open up to our connection to Source. I'm not going to get too much into that for now, but that is another benefit. It's hard to connect to Source energy, intelligent infinity, divine creator, whatever you want to call that, God. It's hard to connect to that, which has a very, very high spiritual energy to it. It's very hard to connect to that when you're in those lower emotions. You feel separate. You feel isolated. And to a certain extent, you are. And so as you start to crack open, as you start to bring light and consciousness to those darker emotions, then you start to open yourself up to the spiritual help that you have all around you all the time. And that's where your intuition comes in. And that's when it starts to get really fun. So I wanted to just come on and talk about this idea of spiritual mastery and why it's so important. And when you begin to master your emotions, like I said, that's when you feel truly, truly empowered. That's what sovereignty is really all about, right? When people throw out this term sovereignty, what is it? What are we really talking about here? When you have mastery over your emotional experience, and what that really means is it doesn't matter what happens out there. It doesn't matter what people do to me. It doesn't matter what's going on in my life. I have responsibility for my emotional response. I have responsibility for my emotional reaction. And when you understand that life is a mirror for you, then you start to use your experience, you start to use your external reality and the emotional responses you have to it to start to do that cleanup work, to start to do the spiritual alchemy of transforming the lead into gold. You see what I'm saying here? Every experience is an opportunity to learn something about yourself, to practice a skill, or to heal. Every experience is an opportunity to learn something, to practice something, or to heal something. And the more you adopt and use that principle, that is my mantra, that's my life principle. If you said, Michelle, what's your mission statement or what's your life philosophy? Every experience is an opportunity to learn, practice, and heal. That's empowerment. That's a statement of sovereignty. And so you start to use your life. You start to use your experiences and you use your emotional responses to go, What is this experience telling me about me? What is this experience showing me that is unhealed in me? Where do I need to do some work so that I can transform the energy, the belief system, the emotions that I'm living in, that I'm operating in, and start to use your experience to make the unconscious conscious? That is sovereignty. Now, again, I want to make it very clear. It doesn't mean that we never get angry. Trust me, I get angry. I call it my Joyce Johnson is coming out. My mother's name was Joyce Johnson, and my mother, whoo, look, she was a fighter, okay? And the older I get, the more my Joyce Johnson comes out. It's very funny. So it doesn't mean we never get angry. It doesn't mean that we never get sad. It doesn't mean we never have fear or anxiety. It just means that we don't stay there. We don't just accept that this is my emotional state and, right? No, this is what I'm feeling. Okay. What is this telling me? What is this emotional state telling me about myself? Why did I get angry? What was it about the situation that triggered me? What was it about the situation that is showing me a pattern that needs to be healed? And when you start to work in that way, that is personal power. That is sovereignty. That's walking and living and embodying true empowerment. So, we're going to keep talking about it, but I wanted to just come on and really talk about this idea of spiritual mastery so that we're really like shooting for the stars as we talk about this work of emotional regulation, emotional processing, and emotional hygiene. Okay, let's keep going. Until the next video, be well.